Hello everyone, this is Venom, and we are back for another Destiny 2 build video. Right now, it is night 4 of the 2024 Destiny 2 Guardian games, and my hunters are killing it right now. Right now, it's night 4, we've currently got 3 points on the board, and we are currently on track to score a 4th one by reset in the morning, and of course, hunters have taken that first win. Now, that being said, Titans have not done too well so far, Warlocks have been right behind us. Today, not so great, but most of the days they've been riding our tails. So, today's build is actually going to help out the Warlocks. I'm going to actually give you guys a build to help with some of the activities and help you farm some medals. I'm going to be bringing you a Super Warlock build. Now, what do I mean by a Super Warlock build? I mean, this build revolves around getting your Super back very often. Now, this build is going to be rated for low to mid-tier content, but it's going to be very effective against anything where you're going to be doing boss damages. So, very effective when you're doing dungeons especially, and raids especially. This is going to be when this really shines, especially dungeons. Now, that being said, this is going to be revolved around the Geomag Stabilizers. Now, the Geomag Stabilizers are an exotic piece of leg armor for the Warlocks, and they say, damaging targets with Chaos Reach extends its duration. This will basically double the time you can use Chaos Reach, so you basically double the damage it can do. Collecting Ionic Traces grants you energy for Chaos Reach. Typically, Ionic Traces will give you back ability energy. This will allow them to give you back super energy as well. Now, how are we going to be generating Ionic Traces? Well, I'm going to show you. Now, before we get into the build itself, I want to talk about the weapons real quick. This build is going to rely heavily on using arc weapons, and you want to use arc weapons that have the Volt Shot perk on it. Here I've got a Terminus Horizon for my heavy weapon. I'm using a Tarnished Metal for my primary weapon. They both have Volt Shot on it, and they both also have Demolitionist on it. If you can get Demolitionist on your weapons as well, that's another good perk to have. But Volt Shot's going to be the one that you definitely want to have for this. So there are several primary weapons that have Volt Shot on it, including Tarnished Metal. We've got the Icarus SMG, and we've got the Oversoul Edict here. There are also some special weapons as well. However, I would definitely prioritize having one of the primary weapons instead. You can get some of these special ones. We got stuff like Indebted Kindness and Path of Least Resistance. I'd say Path of Least Resistance would be the next up to use if you're not using a primary, but definitely make sure you have a weapon with Volt Shot on it. Now, there are some exotic weapons that can actually create Ionic Traces intrinsically. A couple of those are the Cold Heart and the Delicate Tome. I think those are the only two that can do it. I personally don't like using those, or at least a Delicate Tome. I will use the Cold Heart every once in a while. It does actually do pretty good DPS. However, like I said, I do prefer having a primary weapon that can actually generate traces for me that won't run out of ammo, that has Volt Shot on it, because it's going to play into the build as well. So let's go ahead and get into that build now. Now, first off, we've got the Arc Soul aspect. It says, cast your Rift to create an Arc Soul that fires at targets in front of you. Allies can pass through your Rift to get an Arc Soul. Your Rift charges faster when allies are near. And when amplified, your Arc Souls are supercharged and gain increased rate of fire. This is going to be what gives you your Arc Buddy. So whenever you put a Rift down, you're going to basically have that little Arc Buddy that floats next to you. That's your Arc Soul, and it's going to attack enemies for you. Now try to do it when you are amplified. However, you're really going to put your Rift down whenever you have a chance to, when you're near enemies, because that's also going to increase how much super energy you get. We'll get into that part of the build later on. But typically, as soon as you get near enemies, you're going to put down your Arc Soul. Or you put down your Rift to get your Arc Soul, and if you're amplified, the Arc Soul is going to do even more damage. It's going to fire out even more bolts, so that's pretty cool. Our next aspect is going to be Electrostatic Mine, and that says defeating targets with an Arc ability, or defeating jolted or blinded targets creates an Ionic Trace. Collecting an Ionic Trace makes you amplified. And of course, when you get amplified, it's going to increase the effectiveness of your Arc Soul, but the space is going to make it to where all of your abilities are going to give you traces when you kill enemies with them, and it's going to make any weapon you have that has Jolt Shot give you traces as well. And that's why I said it's very important to have a weapon that has Jolt Shot on it. I'm going to go with the fragments first and then go over the rest of everything. First up, we got the Spark of Discharge. It says Arc Weapon Final Blows have a chance to create an Ionic Trace. So this is going to give you a chance to create an Ionic Trace without anything else attached to it, just by using Arc Weapons. Next up, we've got the Spark of Ions. It says defeating a jolted target creates an Ionic Trace. Again, we're going to be using weapons that will jolt our opponents, so pretty much every kill we get, or at least a good portion of the kills we get with our weapons, are going to be guaranteed to make Ionic Traces for us as well. Next up, we've got the Spark of Shot. It says your arc grenades jolt targets. So that means our grenades are going to automatically jolt targets for us. And then finally, we've got the Spark of Magnitude that's going to make our grenades last longer. We're going to be using the Pulse Grenade. The Pulse Grenade is going to basically put down an area effect. It's going to strike every once in a while and do AoE damage. And that last fragment we use is going to make that last longer. That's why we wanted to go with that first. Next up, we've got Ball Lightning for the melee. You can use either one you want to. I prefer using Ball Lightning, just because it almost acts like a grenade in and of itself. It basically flies out, and then when it stops, it's just going to do like an AoE around. It's pretty cool. It does very good damage. I personally like using this one. Now, as far as jumps, use whatever jump you want to. And of course, like always, we're using our healing rift. I don't typically recommend using the empowering rift, because it's always better to have some way to guarantee to heal yourself, and you're definitely going to want to heal yourself a lot since you will be getting up close to some enemies for this one, so make sure you're using your healing rift. And finally, for super, it's very important, you have to use Chaos Reach for this, because this is what works with the entire build, including the Geomag Stabilizers. So you cannot use the other one, the Storm Trance. You have to use Chaos Reach for this, which is the best out of the two for boss damage anyway. Now, like I said, for our weapons, we're going to be using weapons that have Jolt or Volt Shot on it, so that's going to be very important. And then for our stats, we're going to definitely want to make sure we got our resilience and our discipline up to 100. After that, go ahead and pump any extra points you have into intellect. Do not try to get it up to 100. Just use whatever points you have left to get it up to whatever you can. And then Geomag Stabilizers will do the rest. Don't worry about that stat too much. Like I said, if nothing else, resilience and discipline, that's what most of our builds are going to be relying on. So first off, for the helmet mods, you're going to have 2 copies of Dynamo. What Dynamo does is it's going to recharge your super if you use your class ability near enemies. Now, if you are using a special weapon, which again, I don't necessarily recommend, but if you want to, you go ahead and take off 1 Dynamo and put on a copy of Special Ammo Finder, or you can go ahead and put on a copy of Special Finisher, which I do not have on here. I don't typically use that for this build, but if you want to use a special weapon, then you go ahead and use those 2 mods. But I'm going to assume that you've got a primary weapon with Bolt Shot on it, so instead we're going to be using Dynamo, and we're going to have on a Harmonic Siphon mod to generate orbs of power. Next up for arms, you're going to want a copy of Firepower, a copy of Bolstering Detonation, and if you've got the room for it, I'd probably go ahead and either do a copy of Heavy Handed, or if not, Fastball, whatever you have the room for. I don't have room for anything past the Fastball on mine to increase how far I can throw my grenade, but Firepower and Bolstering Detonation you definitely want to have. The Firepower is going to help you create orbs of power whenever you get killed with your grenade, which you should be getting quite often. And then whenever you do damage to your grenade, you will be reducing the cooldown on your class ability, which will further reduce the cooldown of your super. So that would be what I would use for this one. Now for your chest. Because you're going to be getting closer to enemies to use your class ability to get your supercharge up, I highly recommend putting on a couple of defense mods that are going to help in close range situations. So melee damage resistance is a good one. After that, concussive dampener would be another good one. If you don't want to use concussive dampener, if you're going to avoid standing in fire, which you should be anyway, but stuff happens, you go ahead and take off concussive dampener and toss on a reserve mod instead. But if you want to be safe, either keep concussive dampener or put on one of the elemental resistance mods. Now, if you're heavy ammo is going to be that important to you, go ahead and put on a reserve. However, you should not really need to rely on heavy ammo too much for this, because your super is going to be up so often that will let as your heavy. So I would go with defensive mods instead to keep you alive when you use your class ability near enemies. Next up for the legs, we're going to be using the Arc Weapon Surge. We're going to be mainly doing damage with our Arc Weapon, so we do want to have that Surge mod on. Now to keep us charged up, we're going to be using Elemental Charge. We're going to have so many ionic traces that we are constantly going to be charged up. Even without time dilation, even without anything else, we're going to constantly be charged up just thanks to elemental charge alone, not to mention any orbs of power we pick up. And then, of course, we're going to have a copy of recuperation on, because it's always a good idea to have an extra way to heal by picking up Orb of Power. So go ahead and keep recuperation on. That's going to be a great way to heal. Don't worry about any of your recharge mods on this one. Your Ionic Charges are going to help you recharge your abilities as well as the rest of your build. So don't worry about that too much. Keep the healing portion of it with the recuperation. And then for the class armor, we're going to have on a copy of Reaper. The Reaper, of course, when you use your class ability, which you will use often, and then get a weapon kill quickly afterwards, it's going to generate an orb of power. It's a very good way to generate orbs of power, and we will be able to do that quite often with this build. We're going to have Powerful Attraction, which is going to work into Reaper, since we'll be using our class ability. Powerful Attraction will suck any orbs of power close to us. And then, whatever room you got left over, you can either toss on a copy of Bomber, or, like I said, if you absolutely positively have to have a special weapon, go ahead and toss on Special Finisher. I don't recommend trying to finish enemies with this build. That's not how you should be playing this one. But if you need to generate special ammo, go ahead and use a Special Ammo Finisher. So how do you use this build? Well, this is not a utility build. This is going to be a damage build, so we do want to kind of use the abilities the correct way. So with your Healing Rift, you want to use those when you're close to an enemy. Now, you can use it when it's far away. It will heal you, so if you're in a pinch and you're about to die, go ahead and use it whenever you need to. However, you want to try to use it when you're close. That way you get that chunk of super energy from Dynamo. Now, you're going to get your Arc Soul, and that's going to start attacking enemies for you. that's going to give you ionic traces. You're going to use your grenades, and you're going to use your melee just like you would anything else. Now, try to aim them towards targets that are going to die when you use them. Don't try to toss your grenades, say, at a tank if it's not going to die. You want to actually charge them towards enemies that are going to actually die and give you ionic traces for that, and that are going to die and make orbs of power. Same with your melee. Try to use them at enemies that are going to die. Typically, lower level enemies like red bars are going to do that. After that, use your weapons like you normally would. Just make sure you are proccing Volt Shot. Make sure you get that kill, you reload, and then go ahead and shoot towards a group of enemies. Make sure, if you can, that you shoot a group of enemies. That way, that Volt Shot actually spreads out and hits them all, and you get multiple enemies in that. And that's going to also make you make your ionic traces. Once you get your super, go ahead and feel free to pop it whenever you want to. There's going to be plenty of enemies to use it against, and you're going to get it back very quickly. Like I said, if you're doing a dungeon or a raid, you're going to get it back much, much quicker than you think, just because of how many enemies there are. You should have it for pretty much every damage phase you do when you're doing a boss. So, that being said, I'm going to show you what it looks like doing a strike. It's not a raid, it's not a dungeon, so I'm not going to get my super back as much as I would then. But just imagine if I was actually stationary with enemies just coming at me, you're going to be having your super back pretty much every 30 seconds or so, when you've got just non-stop enemies coming at you. So let me go ahead and show you what it looks like in a strike. I'm going to show you every time I get my super back. I think I have one at the end. I just barely missed because I died, but we're like one shy of like 7, but I'll show you. And that's it. You guys saw how many supers I got. Like I said, I was one shy at the end just because I ended up dying. I got a little cocky. But you can see if I had died or hadn't died, I would have gotten one more super. So, and you can see that I got way more kills than both my other teammates as well. So this build is not only going to be doing a lot of damage with the super, which you're going to get back a lot, you're going to have a lot of ability damage going out. And thanks to your arc buddy, you're basically going to have one more gun shooting for you automatically. So, like I said, this is going to be a very, very fun build. This is a really fun build to use. Probably my third favorite Warlock build. I got everything listed out. It's not my favorite Warlock build just because I like Void on every class. It is what it is. I like Void and then I like Strand. However, this is a very powerful, very, very fun, and very easy to use arc build. The only real big thing you got to worry about is, again, making sure you try to get close to enemies when you use your healing rift. Now, it's not too hard to do when you're doing dungeons and raids. You're typically going to be surrounded by enemies anyway. And something like a strike or any lost sector is going to be a little bit harder to do or to remember. But once you remember that little bit, the rest of the build, it pretty much plays itself. Just every weapon kill you get, every ability you use is going to be giving you ionic traces. As long as you're using your abilities effectively, you're going to be getting your super back just super quick. So, that being said, that's going to do it for today, guys. Like always, I'm going to show you what it is I'm wearing right now. Again, this is all Guardian game themed. It's going to be the Ultra Plasmic for all of these shaders. And it's going to be the Cunning Contender set, along with the default look of the Geomag Stabilizers. And if I had an ornament for them, you can't really see them under this rope, so I wouldn't bother doing that anyway. And the Ultra Plasmic shader actually gave the Contender set, it actually gave it that good electric glow on everything. So there were very few that I saw that would give it that good glow and still keep them dark. I, of course, like, the darker themed darker themed armor, so this was perfect for it. Took me a while to figure this one out, but yeah, I like it a lot, so. That's going to do it for today, guys. Again, we're in the midst of Guardian Games 2024. My hunters are killing it right now, but I am putting out the Warlock and the Titan stuff right now to kind of help out. I will be doing a Titan build next, and hopefully that can kind of help the Titans and Warlocks put up a bit more of a fight. If not, it's all good. The games are all in good fun. Hope everyone's enjoying the Guardian Games and they're enjoying the new vehicles and everything. If you've got a build you want me to do, hit me up on my Discord or put a comment down below. Let me know what you want me to see. If you like what we're doing here on the channel, please subscribe to the channel. Please leave a like. Thank you all for coming by, and I will see you on the next video.